It's time. Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today is Mr. Joel Bukowski. He is an independent researcher and we're here today to talk about ley lines. I met Joel a couple of weeks ago at a Bigfoot conference here in Michigan that was local, and he had a lot to say about ley lines and was very interesting. Now, Joel, I wanted to ask you, what is your background?
Well, my background's very diverse, but highlights include I have a master's in philosophy with minors in comparative religion and metaphysics from the University of Medicine and Sciences from California in 1996. In 1992, I founded an Explorer post with the Boy Scouts of America that was Post 2192, and we were called the Ghost Post. We did paranormal investigations as well as looking at haunted houses and ghost towns.
That's pretty cool.
I've been an individual researcher in paranormal studies from about 1993 on, but I've been a student of mysticism from about 1984. When I was introduced to an uncle who was a Rosicrucian mystic.
Okay.
And he introduced me to a lot of this stuff. So.
Very cool. Now, what was the driving force that made you or helped you become interested in ley lines?
Well, ley lines were actually a resulting subset of my research. When I was looking into ancient civilizations and monolithic structures and the petroglyphs and stuff, I found that other researchers that connected these ancient sites with lines that turned out to be major ley lines. Of course, this led to further investigation of the history of ley lines and the importance of such to the ancient civilizations and other phenomena.
Okay, so your interest in ley lines was basically a result of your interest in other things, and you just incorporate the knowledge into your further research.
Yep. I found it fascinating with the ley lines in some of the places that I lived here in Michigan. One of the places was up on Mackinac Island, and one of the maps that I saw from probably the early 1920s, that somebody who had been doing dowsing, which is one of the ways that they find ley lines, had a whole bunch of ley lines that seemed to converge or cross at Mackinac Island and a few other places that I've lived.
So now, is your research and investigations just local here to Michigan and the Great Lakes, or do you go more worldwide, over different parts of the country or into other countries?
Well, due to financial constraints, I usually remain local for my on-hands or hands-on investigations. But book research and compiled notes does span the worldwide site and the different theories that are out there. And a lot of my stuff is compiled from researchers that have been to Europe and South America and middle Central America. So, but most of my hands-on research is in Michigan.
Now, what kind of activity do you see near ley lines?
There's many different things that can happen near them. There's a lot of sightings of orbs or energy balls. There's interesting interactions with the wildlife. Sometimes you'll see a whole bunch of trees that are bent towards a focal point. There are a lot of places where ley lines cross, which are called nodes or wells, you'll find religious institutions or places of business for government where they cross. So there's all different kinds of activity near the ley lines.
Okay, and so now I know you mentioned orbs, but have there been increased reports for like UFO activity near ley lines and the nodes, or is it just generally widespread?
Well, we found that there's some more than others. The percentage is definitely higher at near nodes or wells where they cross. Macklin Island is a hot spot. Bay City, Michigan is another hot spot. Just outside those areas are areas that have been very UFO prolific. So,
And so are they are the encounters just seeing the UFOs in the sky, or are they actually seeing the alien species, or is it just a mixture of the two?
well, in Michigan, it's mostly just sightings of the UFOs in the sky. That would be like a close encounter of the first kind. Second kind being it would be seeing the aliens on the ground, and third being, of course, having interactions with them. But in Michigan, mostly it's of the first kind, or seeing them in the sky.
Okay.
They appear as anything from orbs to shadows to the classic cigar shapes to the triangle shapes.
Now, so they're seeing different types of UFO activity.
Different types of UFO activity, as in most of it's just I call them passers-by.
Okay.
It's where they just kind of like they're flying along and people just happen to see them up in the sky. One interesting note is that I've been finding that the incidence of crop circles in conjunction with the UFOs are usually near ley line crossings or major ley lines.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's now my thinking would be that because they're following a ley line, they're maybe mapping out the area and putting up like identification markers of different areas.
Well, in the ancient past, a lot of some of the places that have a lot of UFO sightings also have things like the monolithic structures from the ancient past. Some people call the ley lines the UFO highways because I know that there's some researchers that definitely state that the UFOs follow along the tracks, or what they call the dragon tracks, a lot more than, say, in the middle of nowhere where the ley lines are few and far between.
Okay. Now, on to a similar subject. Do you see a lot of paranormal activity running along ley lines or the nodes?
Decidedly, yes. Some of the most active haunted houses that I've gone into, some of the most spiritually active, like I said, crop circles, have all been in conjunction with ley lines, ley line nodes, wells, and other things like that. There is, some of the people who have the ELF meters, or the electromagnetic frequency testers, find that when they're going and doing haunted house surveys and the thing is jumping up and down, one of the first things they'll do is they'll check to see if they're near a ley line node, just so that it doesn't interfere with the regular the regular
Now,
investigation. That's the word.
okay. um, so now, are there any spots in Michigan that you would recommend that are near ley lines that have strong paranormal activity for anyone who wants to go investigate and see what that experience is like?
Well, there's a couple of places that have made it into the popular culture, such as the mystery spot in the UP.
Okay.
That's a major ley line crossing. That's one of those places where they supposedly have gravity working backwards, or compasses go nuts. There's another place near Big Rapids, or between Big Rapids and Grand Rapids, that is very similar. Mackinac Island, taking midnight walks on Mackinac Island through near the graveyards or up near Fort Holmes, which is at the top of the island, was one of my favorite places to take people when they come to the island for ghost tours. So those are my favorite places to go.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the Paulding Lights that are up in the UP?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The Paulding Lights. They call it a ghost light that comes down the valley and then pops back up. I've seen it myself, but I was just wondering if that was near a ley line. The road to get to it runs from Bruce's Landing to Paulding, Michigan, and Waters Meet. I wasn't sure if you had heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't been up there to go see that specifically.
Okay.
But the maps that I have each do show a definite ley line that runs through that vicinity.
Okay.
Ley lines have a tendency to pulse, and they get stronger and weaker as seasons go by. It's almost like a biorhythm for the Earth. So there's some chances that it's going to be stronger than other times.
Yeah, I've been there. My mom works up in Ely, Minnesota for the North American Bear Center, and so I go through the UP a couple of times a year. So I've stopped a couple of times during the evening, and you drive down to the end of this dead-end dirt road, and you really can't go any further because they have it guardrailed off, and then there's a very significant drop-off where if you take your car past that, you're not coming back up. But in the past, when I've gone and explored it, I actually had a friend of mine who decided he was going to hike all the way down, which I believe he said it was a half mile down to the valley floor, and then he was hiking up, and we were signaling each other with flashlights because he wanted to know when the Paulding light would be near him. So he had shined his flashlight, so I knew approximately where he was, and here came the orb of light, and you can see it very, very well, even though you're quite a distance away. And so I signaled him to tell him that it was right above him, and he couldn't see anything. Now, I was sitting on the side where the guardrail was, and there was a bunch of high school students who had shown up to watch it too, who were local to the area, and they said, yeah, this happens every night, all year round. It's like clockwork. You come, as soon as it gets dark, you can see the light, and it kind of floats down, and then it'll disappear, and then a couple of minutes later, it'll show back up, and it'll bounce back down. And now some people have said that it's headlights, but if you've ever driven through the UP, here, Michigan's UP, cars don't come, along those, highways that often for this to be occurring. So I was just wondering if there was, if possibly the Paulding light, or the ghost light as they call it, was because of the ley lines, and it was just following a course and then resetting itself.
It could very well be. I would love to go up there and check that one out myself. But the indications that I've had in past experiences would say that, yes, there's definitely a connection.
Okay. Now, moving on to another area, have you seen or do you get many reports of an increase in Bigfoot or cryptid sightings near nodes or along the ley lines?
Some studies say yes. I haven't really noticed a major difference in most cases. However, in isolated cases, I have seen where there's 3 or more ley lines are in proximity, that there is a definite increase in Bigfoot sightings. There is a couple of areas near where I live, that's just west of me, and there's major ley line crossings over there, and it's one of the places where there has been numerous sightings by hunters and other people seeing Bigfoot tracks, nature people. They call them all different kinds of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I've noticed that where there's like 3 or more lines that cross, that there's definitely more activity. But in general, like where just 1 or 2 lines are, it's not quite as often.
So the nodes are kind of like a magnet for all different kinds of paranormal activity, from UFOs to ghosts to Bigfoots. It seems like they draw things to it. Is there any evidence of are the ley lines made of particular minerals that are drawing things to them, or is it just a magnetic current that's running around the Earth?
Well, some of the lines line up with magnetic currents. Some of them line up with mineral deposits or groundwater flowing. It's half of one, or 6 of one and half a dozen of the other.
Okay.
When it comes to a lot of those. But what I found around the wells and the nodes, it's more not so much magnetic energy, but living energy. If you can understand the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like the energy that a person gives off in an aura, or and there's a unit called the kinetoscope that is taking pictures of where you take and cut the tip off of a leaf and then take a picture of it underneath the kinetoscope. It shows a picture of the leaf full where the piece was just recently cut off as an energy shadow. I believe that the ley lines are more along that kind of energy, which would in a spectrograph would be a very high frequency energy, as opposed to the mundane magnetics and electrical energy, which are usually measured in megahertz. This would be far beyond that.
Okay. Now, I know that the ley lines, you see lots of activity on the land, but I remember you saying that most of the double triangles, like the Bermuda Triangle, the one that we have here in the Great Lakes, the one over by Japan, those are also near ley lines or have ley lines intersecting through them. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, definitely. They call them vile vortexes, or a negative energy well. See, most energy wells, if it's 2 ley lines that are of different quality, they might cancel each other out, and then you'd have a void. If it's 2 energy lines that are both of the same quality, then you'll have a well or a node. When you get multiple ones of one type of energy or another, all intersecting or in close proximity to each other, they have the things that are called vile vortexes, which are more unpredictable than the regular nodes. Like the Bermuda Triangle, for instance, it's more unpredictable over there, and it interfere with mundane energies such as magnetism and the electronics in planes and ships, and even makes people feel a little bit uneasy.
And do you know, because I know of three that I've come across in my research, the one that's in Lake Michigan, the Bermuda Triangle, and then the one that's over by Japan. How many are there? Are there more than that? I'm sure that there's some undiscovered ones out there, but
well, there's another one that's near Australia. One of the things that we've noticed is the one in Michigan is kind of a fluke, but we've noticed that between 0 degrees and 33 degrees north or south latitude, along the 33-degree line that circumvents the Earth, there are usually about every, say, 30 degrees or so, there is a incident of these vile vortices. So if you track a line of latitude around the Earth, around the globe, chances are that you're going to run across more than just the ones that we know of. I hope that made sense.
Yes, totally. So it seems like those, if my understanding is correct, it seems like those are following a pattern all the way around the Earth.
Yep.
Okay, so that's actually kind of interesting. I would be interested to see how many along that pathway going around the Earth, how many strange occurrences have happened. Ships sinking, planes going down, even reports of sea monsters and stuff like that, and see how it correlates with the vile vortexes, and if their presence is the determining factor of if something happens or not.
Yeah, there's been some of the people, paranormal investigators that have studied that have found definite correlations between UFO sightings and the vile vortices, and all within this 30-degree from the equator, north or south. And even in the higher latitudes, like the one in Lake Michigan, the one in Lake Michigan is roughly the same latitude as Loch Ness. So, you have sightings over there too of you mentioned sea monsters. Well, we have the Loch Ness monster who's on what is considered a vile vortice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the vile vortice, to call it a vile vortice, sounds like it implicates negativity or dangerous things. We call it vile vortices because it's unpredictable.
Right.
So just to clarify that, it's not a bad place. It's just kind of a little unpredictable thing.
And so now, you said that with the ley lines traveling all around the Earth, are they continuous patterns? Do they have stops where one ends and maybe another one picks up in a different location, or are they complete circles that are traveling around the Earth in different directions?
Well, there's the occasion where it seems like a ley line, if you're following along, all of a sudden it seems to get really, really weak. One of the theories is that it goes from the surface into the ground. It's like almost where either it originates or terminates in underground at that point. Kind of like a buried cable, I guess. But I've seen in my research when I've done dowsing and track ley lines over miles, there are definite spots where it's weaker and stronger, and you can a lot of times tell just by the terrain, looking at the trees, looking at where the grass is growing, looking at where the voids are in the grasses. You can tell where the ley lines come close enough to the ground to where they touch or enter into the ground. It's rather than being something on the top of a ground that would be floating. It's like I said, it's a bioenergy. It comes from and goes back into the earth. So I would assume that it goes underground as well.
Okay.
So.
Now, you had mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast that your interest in ancient civilizations is what made you uncover ley lines. What is the correlation? How many of the ancient ruins and monuments that ancient civilizations have left to us? How many of those run along the ley lines that you know of?
So far, every one of the ancient civilizations of 1,000 years or longer that have been uncovered lie along a ley line or more. During the Bigfoot conference, I showed a short video where they traced a line literally from Easter Island across South America, across the Atlantic Ocean across Africa, and ending at the Great Pyramids of Giza, where it crossed no less than 15 different ancient sites, whether it be a city or a monolithic structure or something. Another thing is the star line or the star path that travels from like England all the way straight down through Egypt. There's a whole bunch of cities that are on there that are ancient cities, over 800 to 1,000 years old. Some of them are 2,000, 2,500 years old. That all of the names in these cities have the word star in it somewhere, or a reference to a specific star. Those are all on a major ley line.
Well, that's cool.
Easter Island, over in India, there's a number of temples that lie upon the ley lines. So like I said, it's just about every place that I've investigated. When you look up the location of it, plot them on a map, and you can literally connect them by straight lines, and every one of those is a ley line.
Now,
amazing.
Are there documented maps that people can have access to that show the ley lines from different parts of the world? Because I think that would be, if you were an archaeologist or an anthropologist or anyone investigating ancient cultures or ruins, I would think that having the ley lines, a map of the ley lines, would be quite beneficial, and it could possibly lead you from ruin to ruin.
Well, the mainstream archaeologists and most of the people in the, quote, respective scientists, unquote, won't tell you that they're following a ley line. They're following a lead, but they don't tell you where that lead comes from. But I've noticed there's a couple of books that I've seen. One of them I mentioned in the conference that has some maps in them that highlight the ley lines and how they seem to cross and intersect, and where there's major ones and where there's minor ones and such. I mentioned it. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to do it. If you want to edit it out, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
David Childress. He's the guy who does the Ancient Aliens series with Gregor Tsukolov. David Childress wrote a book back in I believe it was in the 90s, where he did a compilation. It's called Energy Lines in the World Grid, and in it are, I think there's at least 8 different fully mathematical and documented explanations and maps and harmonics of the ley lines. And at least 2 of those articles have maps in them. So they're hard to come by unless you really know where to look. I've been petitioning a couple of places that have dealt with mysticism for a while, and still waiting for a response back. If I get a response back from them, I'll email you some of the maps that I get, just so that we can show you how they are today.
Oh, that would be cool. Thank you.
So.
Okay. Now, seeing as you've been investigating ley lines for a while now, what has been your strangest or most unique experience with investigating ley lines and dealing with ley lines?
Well, there's a couple incidents. One of them was way back when I was in college, back in the 80s. We had there seemed to be a whole bunch of paranormal things going on in our area. This was in the Tri-City area, basically Saginaw, Midland area. There was a cemetery out in Freeland that supposedly haunted, and everybody's saying that it was just really, really active. There's a couple cemeteries in Bay City that were the same way. People couldn't walk through Vets Park without seeing either UFO or an orb or something going on. And being college age and being inquisitive and pardon the expression, but I was a little drunk most of the time. I wanted to go investigate some of these things. So we went on the summer days. We drove out to Freeland, and we saw a number of apparitions all at once, and it was really unsettling, because I consider myself a practical person who has both feet on the ground, and having a head in the sky as a philosopher does. We still try to ground ourselves in, okay, well, we believe what we can see, touch, taste, smell, and when you come across, the first time I came across something like that, it kind of made me question myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually broadened my scope quite a bit way back then, by seeing a whole bunch of apparitions and the lighted up spheres and getting this feeling. It's not like being punched in the stomach, but that after effect, that nausea feeling that you get afterwards.
Right.
Or like severe butterflies, stage fright, I suppose. Something like that, but it didn't feel like it was where it was supposed to be in your body. It felt like it was in moving around. It almost felt like something alive inside of you. That was probably the strangest thing that ever happened to me. So that was an odd time way back then. Things have since calmed down.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with that feeling that it's like you've been shocked from the inside out.
Yeah.
I've
been hit by lightning twice. I know what that feels like.
Yeah. So yeah, that when you suddenly realize that you're not alone and what you just saw was really something, that it kind of hits you hard, and you're like, okay, now let's think about this for a second.
You're with a bunch of people, and you see something, and you say to yourself, that isn't supposed to be there.
Right.
And you're afraid to say something to the person next to you because you're afraid that they didn't see it, and you might be cracking up, and they're thinking the exact same thing. So what I say is, if you see something, if you're with somebody and you see something, speak up. Because if it's not there, or if they don't see it, maybe you're seeing something a little bit beyond. I'm a colorblind person, so I see a lot of things different than most people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also, when I took a trip to the Smithsonian when I was a child, and I was looking at one of these infrared cameras that was looking at the flowers and said, this is what bees see. I'm looking at it, and I couldn't tell the difference between the flower in the screen and the flower that was in front of me. So one of the Smithsonian curators that was there took me into a little back room, and they says, I want you to look at something. I want you to trace the lines that you see on this picture. Well, I traced the lines, and then they told me, okay, this is written in ultraviolet ink, and you're not supposed to be able to see those. I went, oh, yes. Well, nobody told me I wasn't supposed to, so apparently I could. So, we all have our own special perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage people to don't be afraid of them. Use them. They're there for a reason.
Exactly. Because like you said, you can have a group of people together and we may all see something, but are we all seeing the same thing? Or is the way that our mind is developed, do we process it differently? To the person next to me, they might just see a shadow, but I might see the full apparition. And the person 5 feet away from us might only hear the sound of it being there. So it's all in what your mind can interpret and process.
It's the range of the sensitive, is what they call it.
Yes.
Whether or not you're tuned in quotes, to the specific vibrations of sound, of sight, of feeling, of emotion. Because you can be empathic and be able to sense everybody in the room that's upset. And people don't understand when somebody walks in, they're in a good mood, they walk in the room, all of a sudden they're not feeling good. It's because of all these other people who are upset. They don't feel it, so,
Right.
But trust your feelings.
Yeah, that can make things really interesting for if you are an empath, and you do pick up on different people's energies, emotions. That would probably I wonder if having an empath on a team for investigation, for if you were doing ley lines, if that would be a positive or a negative. I'm sure it would affect the person.
I would say it depends on the control that they have over it. Some people who are hypersensitive to this sound, you don't want to take them to a rock concert.
Right.
People who are hypersensitive to bioenergies or something like that, you don't want to take them to where 3 ley lines cross near a node, because it's like screaming at them.
Right.
But again, it depends on what kind of control that they have over it.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else you would like to talk about with ley lines, or anything else that you're researching with metaphysics or into the paranormal that you would like to talk about, or do you have any books or articles that are coming out that you would like people to know about?
Well, I have 2 books on Kindle right now. One of them is a dark fantasy book called Tenet to the Assassin, but there's another book called Path of the Philosopher Warrior. It's a book that kind of describes how I got to be where I am, and in it is some of the experiences that I've had and how I've come to realize what it is that I'm seeing, or experiencing. And both of those are available on Kindle.
Okay. And it's under your name?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because some people use a pen name and then you can never find their works. And then are you doing any other conferences or workshops?
Well, in February, I'm a regular speaker or presenter at a convention called Convocation.
Okay.
That's usually at the Doubletree in Dearborn.
Yep, I teach at Convocation. Actually, I've taught there for the last 10 years. This year I took a break because I'm recovering from some stuff that was going on, but I know Convocation well.
Yeah, I usually do a self-defense class and then maybe 1 or 2 philosophy-type classes. Last couple of years I did one called Messing with Your Reality, where we talk about cymatics and various other things that appear to bend reality, but it's just a part of physics that a lot of people don't know about, because it's very, very specific, like watching water curl itself up into a coil as it's coming out of a hose.
Mm-hmm.
You can look it up at CYMATICS, cymatics. There's a lot of really cool videos on that. But yeah, I teach those classes. I did one on the philosophy of magic. I did one on love and the energy of healing, and I do all different kinds of conferences and panels. So I'm kind of diverse.
Cool. Well, I would like to thank you for your time, and um, I will probably have you back on the show in a couple of months. Um, and thank you for talking about ley lines with me this evening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, no problem. And I will probably have this on Sunday night. I'm going to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference this weekend, so hopefully when I get home on Sunday night, I